All right, let's get started. So today in this session, we are going to explore the Obsidian Starter Kit v3. So basically diving into all of the gory details of how it's set up, how it's organized, what it contains, the full configuration, the node types, every detail that you can think about, you will discover in this video. It will be quite detailed and quite technical at times, but I hope that it will be interesting. So whether you're considering acquiring the Obsidian Starter Kit, or already using it, or simply are curious about Obsidian and how you can customize it and structure your content inside of it so that it's scalable and maintainable over time. All right, so share my screen so that you can take a look at the plan. So basically the plan today is to explore the main features of the Obsidian Starter Kit, understand what's inside of it, what's contained in the Starter Kit, the design principles that are basically behind and accompany everything that is done within the Starter Kit. So the reasons why it's the way it is, the folder structure that is included in the Starter Kit and why it's designed that way. The different node types that are supported by the system, the tagging system, how templating and templates play a key role in organizing information with the Starter Kit. So how we file nodes automatically with the Starter Kit and the different configurations that we have, properties that we have on the nodes and why they matter, why they are relevant and useful. Periodic nodes, we will take a look at that. And then we will explore different systems that are included in Starter Kit. So we have the dot system, the learning system, the visualization system, the people system, the maps system. And we will dive a bit more into how you can capture information. So my recommendations around that and how it's supported by the Starter Kit out of the box. Or you can curate, create information, organize actions, so define and track your goals, your plans, your projects, and your tasks. So we will see what is included in Starter Kit to support those different aspects, how the data is organized, and the plugins that we use to achieve that more easily. There's also the meeting notes system and the health system that we will dive into. We will take a look at the different Obsidian bases that are included. So I will do a quick refresh on what Obsidian bases are, and then we will dive into the different ones that the Obsidian Starter Kit includes. And finally, we will take a look at the different plugins that the Starter Kit includes. So there are many of those. And there is a reason for that. So the goal is not to add many plugins just for the sake of it, but actually to add things that make your life easier, that make you more productive, that make your knowledge base easier to use and easier to maintain. So we'll take a look at that as well. So the first thing to understand about the Obsidian Starter Kit is what is included inside of it. So first, you have the folder structure. So basically, the Starter Kit comes with a structure that helps you organize all of the kinds of information that you need to store in your knowledge base very systematically without having too many folders, because the goal is not to have hundreds of folders or folders per category or folders by topics, things like that. That doesn't make sense, and so we will take a look at that. The naming conventions are also embedded inside of the Starter Kit. So not only do you get a structure in which you can organize your information, but the information itself is named in a way that makes it easier to find, easier to recognize, and to have visual consistency in the information that you capture. And to support that, actually, the system also includes basically templates for each node type that is included. And as we will see, the node types are actually very central to the way that the Starter Kit works today. So we have the Obsidian bases that are included and built upon the structure of nodes, the structure of folders, the structure of node types and tags. Yeah, one thing that I did not mention about the templates is that they not only make it easy to create nodes of a certain type, but they also enforce in a way the structure that you are using for your nodes, for the different node types, the metadata that is included, and the tags that are included by default. This makes it very easy to remain consistent, even if you have a large amount of information inside of your knowledge base. We have a few utility nodes, but this is more of the details. So the plugins, and last but not least, the configurations that go along with those plugins. So it's not just the fact that Obsidian Starter Kit includes plugins, but it also includes the default configuration that those need to function within the system, and also to work correctly and nicely together with the system and between plugins as well. So the first thing that we need to discuss about the Starter Kit, now that you have a small idea about what it contains, is the design principles that are underpinning everything that's been done inside of the App Starter Kit. So I will open this node, so it's part of the user guide. Actually, I forgot to mention that the Starter Kit comes with a very detailed user guide explaining all of this, all of the systems, templates, properties. Everything is documented clearly with tutorials. So everything that you need to get started and to go inside of the Starter Kit more deeply is included inside of it. I will add this here. So the first thing to understand is that the Starter Kit is not something that is intended to be used just as a one-time thing or for the short term. I've built this system based on my own, and I've built my own system as something that I want to use for decades, basically. So it's going to evolve. It already has, and it will continue to evolve. So that's good news, because we have to adapt to the basically different interests, different evolutions, such as AI improvements that we have seen in the last couple of years. But the core principle that I have while building this is that I want to build something that is really stable, or as stable as possible over time. And so the system is built in a way that makes it easier to maintain over time. So I'm not, sometimes things are a bit more complicated than they could be, but there is a good reason behind that. And I'm only introducing complexity where and when needed. And so I approach the development of the Starter Kit as a system. So it's a system that evolves, that lives, that grows, but that has a very strong structure behind it. Also, the way I see it, this system is very central to everything that I do. So it's not only about storing notes, it's actually about organizing my life, having clear priorities, tracking my work, organizing my thinking, supporting my thinking, capturing ideas and information and knowledge that I find valuable and that I want to act upon. And so, as such, it's not just a storage system. It's more than that. It's a support system for my life. So it's a personal organization system in a way, but it goes deeper than just storing stuff. To do this, what I did is I created a number of subsystems that I assembled together and that I supported with different plugins and configurations. In general, I consider also that less is more. So the system is not built, it's not bloated. It may feel like so when you get started because there's a lot of moving parts, let's say, that has grown over time, but with careful design, basically. So what I try to do is limit the number of tools that I'm using, limit the number of plugins that I'm using, limit the complexity of the systems that I'm building. And I also want the system to be approachable. So I try to minimize the amount of things that are included out of the box, the complexity of the whole. I just add complexity where and when needed. it's very workflow centric. So I have different workflows that I rely upon for my daily work, for my thinking, for learning, things like that. And all of those workflows are first priorities when I'm designing the system itself, the whole. So when I'm thinking about learning, then I know that I'm following certain steps. I introduce information in a certain way, process it in a certain way, connect it in a certain way. Same thing when I'm prioritizing work or when I'm conducting work. All of those are central to the way the system is built. So there is a system for journaling, for daily notes, periodic notes in general, periodic reviews. All of those have dedicated workflows that are also documented in the user guide. One more design principle of the starter kit is that it's using an automation first approach. So my goal is not to spend all my time organizing information, naming things, and spending time moving files and things around. What I want is something that makes it easy for me and for end users to organize information at scale and while being very consistent with the way that is done. And so the way it's implemented, and we will dive into that in detail afterwards, is there is an automatic note filing system combined with the templating system. And so when you apply a certain template to a note, there are rules that are automated that will move those notes where they belong. And that's the kind of thing that saves a ton of time because, I don't want to be filing notes all day long. And it removes the burden of thinking about where should this go. Now, the structure is there, the automation is there. And so all you have to know is I need to create something of this type. And when you do, that thing goes where it belongs. And so it's much easier to maintain the system and being consistent with it all the time. It also removes a lot of friction when you are using it daily. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what many users are doing. It's coming back a bit to the folder structure of the system. But basically, I'm applying information architecture principles to make the information basically easy to file. So that's what we just discussed. Easy to identify. So there are naming conventions that make it easy to recognize things. Easy to locate. So because the structure is clear and well organized and not organized by topic, but rather by content type, it's very easy to go back to a certain piece of content or certain types of content within the system. And so last but not least, it makes it a breeze to just retrieve information you need when you need it. And that's what we want, because at the end of the day, it's not about filing, it's not about organizing, it's about being able to locate what you need when you need it and to retrieve it when you need it. Because what you want is to have information that you can leverage. And information you cannot find is information you cannot leverage. So this is an important aspect of the system. Next, I try to avoid inconsistencies and duplication of information. So because the system is organized by type, it's very easy to see when you have duplication of information in the system. Because, that's a good thing to avoid. There's strong support for interstitial journaling and daily notes. And so I strongly recommend using daily notes as the central or the first entry point inside of your knowledge base. There are many, many reasons that I cover those inside of those notes. So along with this talk, you will get access to a list of resources covering all of the points that I'm discussing and diving much deeper into my thinking about this, the way I do this, the way I recommend doing it. I've also recorded a while ago journaling deep dive that really covers this in great detail. And so, for instance, we covered through that talk a huge schema that I've created that basically explains all of this in detail. It's a long workshop. It's available on my store. It's available to knowing community members. But we are not going to dive into how that works today. But Basically, I believe that interstitial journaling and daily notes in particular are highly valuable for knowledge management. And they work wonders at many levels. Related to that is support for bulk processing through periodic notes. Again, that's a topic that was covered in the talk I mentioned. Let's stop with those principles for now. Maybe just a few more. So templates we have mentioned. There's strong support inside of the starter kit for different modalities. So you can create text content. That's made the default, let's say, for Obsidian. But there's also strong support in the starter kit for creating maps, creating visualizations using different means. So you can create mind maps, create canvas diagrams, or Excalibur diagrams and other types if you want, Mermaid, for instance. That's supported by Obsidian out of the box. That is the core of the design principles of the system. Now, to make this more concrete, let's dive into the folder structure that is used by the starter kit. So again, this is part of the user guide. The core of the structure is to support these. So I want to build a system that scales infinitely, that is easy to scale. At this point in time, I have over 10,000 nodes, something like that. So it's more 13,000 at this point. It works, it scales, it does not slow down, it's not harder to find information. So I think I have achieved my goal of building something that scales, and I've proved it. Many of my nodes are public and free to access. That reduces decision fatigue. So as I said, I don't want to spend time filing nodes and thinking about where should this go or fiddling with the folder structure. I have clearly defined node types in the system, and there is automation that takes care of filing stuff. So this reduces decision fatigue because you don't have to think about, where should I place this now? Now, the folder structure also supports automation by itself because the way it's organized is a way that supports automation completely. So at the top level, what I've used inside of the starter kit is the power method by Thiago Forte. It's quite simple. Basically, with the power method, what you have is a place where you can store information about projects, a place for areas that can contain different areas of responsibilities or interests in your life, resources. Those can be images, PDFs, documents, scripts, templates, whatever you want, just content that is separate from your projects and the different areas that you are interested in. So basically side files or support files, supporting documents or information. And last but not least, you have the archives in which you can store information that you are not relying upon at this point in time, but might have to refer to later on. So the bar method is something that is included out of the box inside of the starter kit. I added a few things to that. So first, there is the meta space. So it's a folder in which you can organize information that is not really about all of the content that you could capture. So maybe you are interested into sciences or IT or taking or whatever. And so you have spaces where you can capture information about all that. But let's say that you also want to organize your life with this. You can use the meta space for that. So you have there spaces to organize your personal information, your routines, your processes. Just the maintenance of the system itself can go in there. So, and you have the areas from Para, the resources and the archives. That's mostly standard Para, let's say, with some nuances. The space for resources. And also one thing that I've added is a space for action. So this comes back to the personal organization and productivity aspect that is supported. Again, saying that Starter Kit supports organizing my whole life. So not only my notes, but everything I do and think. And so the action space is the space that I use to organize goals, organize plans, tasks, projects. all of that is in a specific area of the folder structure. So now we can dive into this structure step by step. So first, inside of the meta folder that is included by default, there are subfolders for different things. And instead of looking at this, we are going to look at my actual structure so that you can see how it's organized more visually. So meta space, as I said, is for meta information, personal information. So I have a space for personal notes. So these are notes that I do not want to mix with the rest of my knowledge base. My routines, so the things that I do regularly, so in the morning, in the evening, once a week, once a month, once a year, things like that. My processes, so how I go about filing my taxes, publishing a new YouTube video, things like that. Maintenance notes, these are simply utility notes that I can use to locate quickly notes that might be problematic in my knowledge base. So here I can see that I have a note that is called Ghostwriter, and there is a second one that is called Ghostwriter in a different location. That might be an issue because it means when you are creating a link, you might mistake one for the other. So in generally speaking, it's not a good idea to have multiple notes with the same names. I have a view over the tags that are least used in my knowledge base. Sometimes those indicate either that there is very limited interest about something or that I made a mistake. So in this case here, I see that I have back_end and back-end. This is incorrect. This is something that I should fix. Now it's low priority for me because most of the time that's okay, but sometimes I do take time to go in those maintenance notes and fix things basically. I have a view about the tags that I'm using the most in my knowledge base. Again, that can be useful to review some of the things. And notes that I have not published yet. So these are notes that are not public. So it's very specific to my publishing approach. But yeah, I have a space for private notes, my company notes, on my AI assistant. It's something that I'm going to work on again soon. Then we have a space for actions. So as I said, the system supports productivity. And so there, the first thing that you can do is create notes that describe all of your goals. The approach with the system is that each element, so goals, plans, projects, tasks, are all individual notes. So I have one note per goal. So this is one of my goals. And this goal is to automate cross-posting across different services for my articles. So I can document here my vision for that goal, the success criteria, the strategy that I want to apply. I capture the decisions that I've made, my progress, and things like that. This has not started yet, so it's pending at this moment. But there is one note for each of those. Then same thing for the plans. Same thing for projects. So I have project notes that basically describe each project, the goals that are associated, the tasks that are associated with those. And same thing with tasks. Actually, this is something that I find really interesting to do, is have one note per task, because this enables basically capturing all of the details of specific tasks and going back in a future at a future point in time and being able to remember or find things back. So if I'm using this note, for instance, I am configuring Omarchi on my laptop, I can capture the details of things that I want to do that I haven't completed yet. I can also link to other tasks. But I can also capture notes about the approach, the process, the issues. And this is a way to capture information. And the nice thing of having this system organized this way here in the actions folder is that I can capture those details at all levels. So from the highest level, goals, to the lowest level, tasks. And so details I can capture about the task are going to describe, for instance, I needed to use that command, but I tried and it failed. it wasn't the right one, should have used that instead. And I ended up succeeding by using this. This is the kind of stuff I can capture in my TaskNotes. And for my goals, I can capture things such as, at a certain point in time, I made a decision. It was not a good one, or I failed because of this and that and that, or I should have done this differently. You can capture basically all of the information. And so we will come back to this action system later. 30 areas we will discuss in a minute. It's a bit more complicated. Then we have the journal. So the journal is the space where you can capture daily notes, weekly notes, monthly, quarterly, and yearly notes. So these are all organized properly. So all are part of the journal, and they are organized by year, by week. So at the daily notes level, it's first by year and then by week. So you get at most 7 notes in each folder. So it's easy to go back to a certain week and find back all of the notes that you took during that specific week. You have the weekly notes, same thing, but organized by year. And then you have 1 note per week that was captured. Monthly, it's organized by year, then by month. So 1 note per month. And quarterly, almost the same thing, just have 1 note per quarter. And the yearly notes, same, you get 1 note per year. So this is neatly organized, again, supported fully by the system. There are plugins that support the way this works. So you don't have to spend time filing. So let's suppose that I go back to my note of today. I open a note for tomorrow. So we will come back to the way that this works. But basically now what I did was I created a daily note. And you can see that if I locate this file in my vault now, so I just created it and applied the template, and the note is right where it belongs. So it's week 47, apparently. We are getting really close to the end of the year. This journaling system makes it very easy to create notes at different time frames and to organize those easily. One more folder that we can look at is the 50 resources here. So as I said, this one is for storing different kinds of resources. So first, the attachments. Inside of the attachments folder, you can add images, you can add documents, you can add PDFs, whatever you want. One thing to consider is that attachments, I do recommend keeping most of those in a single folder. In my case, I have separated that in 2 subfolders because those I publish and those I don't. But by default, what you get with the starter kit is this folder only. Then I have a place for storing Excalibur scripts. That's a detail, general scripts that might be useful. The templates have a dedicated space, so all of the templates that are included in the starter kit are in this folder. We will come back to this in a bit. We have Obsidian Publish, where you can have the configuration for Obsidian Publish websites in case you are using that. That's supported also by default by the system. I have a space for prompts. This is something that I intend to rework to also store AI conversations in the future. And then you have the archives inside of which you can just move things that you don't need anymore. One example of that is we have these actions. So when you complete a task with the action system that we will discuss, you can actually archive those. And when you do that, they are moved automatically to these folders, which means that you can keep your old completed tasks around just in case you need to come back to those. But you can also delete those if you don't need them anymore. And the files here, just don't pay attention too much to this. We will take a look at some of those, but let's go back to the... So to finish up with the folder structure, we need to take a look at the areas. Actually, this is where the bulk of the content is located. So if you look at the number of notes I have in all of my folders, you can see that the areas is where most of my notes are placed. One more thing to notice, because before we take a look at that, is the numbering. So as I said, the system intends to be to facilitate finding things back. And so we have these folders that are numbered. So this is using a system called the Johnny Decimal System by Johnny Noble. It's a simple numbering system that makes it easy to organize things logically. So the idea is that if I open the folder that contains my Obsidian vaults, I will see the folders listed in the same order. That would not be the case if there was no numbered prefix, because M would be after A, and the order would be different. So this numbering scheme has two purposes. First, it makes it easy to keep the order the same across different tools. So if I open this folder with any file explorer, I will see the things in the same order. There is also a rule with the Johnny Decimal System that limits the number of subfolders that you have inside of one space. That's just a general best practices for organizing information, because if you have 100 folders inside of one, then it's kind of difficult. And so the numbering scheme is organized in such a way that limits that. So you are normally limited by 10 categories, so top level, and 10 subcategories in each. And also the numbering is well organized. So all of the folders inside of 10 meta start at 11 and increase by 1. And if we go one level deeper, you can also have sub-numbers, just like this. So here we have 30 areas, 32 literature nodes, and inside of 32 you have 3201, blah, 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 blah. That's how it goes. And so as you can see, the structure is really neatly organized. We also have a few icons here and there. I did not do it at all levels, but in most of those you will see those. We will take a look at how that's done a bit later. So to finish up with the areas folder, let me explain the way it's organized. So first, you have folders that map what is called the Zettelkasten method in the Zettelkasten system. So Zettelkasten has two sides to it. First, you have the process, so how you apply the system, and the Zettelkasten system itself. So the Zettelkasten system is a way to separate between different levels or different kinds of information. So first you have fleeting nodes. So fleeting nodes are basically nodes that you have, these are back of the napkin nodes. So you just write something down quickly and it's not polished, it's not finished, it's not complete. It doesn't matter. It's just the idea of capturing something so that you have it somewhere. So here I have tons of examples of nodes that I've taken, that I've copy-pasted from the internet, or ideas that I had. So that just here I have 2 lines, doesn't matter, but it's just something that I wanted to capture at some point. And the fact that it's called fleeting refers to the fact that it's temporary, it's not complete. So you can see this as an inbox, as a space to capture stuff quickly, but you know that if something is in there, it will need further processing before it can be promoted to one of the other spaces. Honestly, I actually don't use this folder anymore, and I will explain later why. But basically, it boils down to the fact that I prefer to capture information inside of my daily notes. So here's my note for today. And in general, what I will do if I want to capture information is just to store it inside of one of these sections. There are many reasons for that. I cover those in my journaling deep dive, but basically it's just that I'm tying information and knowledge to time by doing this, and this is really valuable. And this is why I've basically stopped using this. So I just have notes in there that are waiting for me to go back to those, but those don't matter too much. Then we have the 32 literature notes folder. The idea of that folder inside of the Zettelkasten system is to store information that is not yours. So basically, let's say that you discover some interesting article on the internet written by someone else, and you want to capture that information. But you know it's not yours because you are just taking it, copy pasting it, or even rewriting some parts. But you know that it's not been created by you. And so the goal of the literature notes is to indicate that the information that is in there, literature notes, are not your own content. It might be important to you or it might not. That depends. So if you're a researcher, then literature notes are highly valuable because you have to know that certain pieces of content are not yours. You need to have this distinction. Same thing if you're an author, if you're a blogger, content creator in general, it's valuable to have a space where you can put everything that is not yours. And that's the goal of the literature notes. We can take a look at the details after. And last but not least, you have the permanent notes, and these are yours. And that's why there is a brain there, because these are your own ideas written using your own words. And there are different types of those. But the idea, so coming back to the Zettelkasten method, or the Zettelkasten system rather, is you have temporary notes, notes from other people, and your own notes. Now, there is more to the Zettelkasten system, and that's called the Zettelkasten method, because the idea is that you can transition between those, and you can leverage those at different levels, let's say. So fleeting notes that you capture, those might be notes that you have written with your own words, or things that you have captured, doesn't matter. But when you process those to include those in your actual knowledge base, those will be evolving, made better, not final, but better, or reach a certain quality level, let's say. And then you're going to either make literature notes out of those or permanent notes, or both, doesn't matter. But so there is a promotion system, let's say, with the Zettelkasten method. Also, there is an idea, an important idea behind the Zettelkasten method. It's that you should try and create atomic notes, so really short, focused notes that focus on one thing and one thing only, that are short, if possible, or as short as possible, let's say. And so I have notes such as this one, for instance, the lift principle. You can see that it's quite short, actually. It's just like a one-pager. And that's the general idea behind atomic notes with the Zettelkasten method. You create notes that are really focusing on one thing. So this note is just about the lift principle. It doesn't mix with other methods. It doesn't try to compare with other methods. It's just this one thing. And that's a general principle that I highly recommend applying when you're just trying to build your practice of knowledge management, is focus on creating atomic notes. Again, sorry, but we cannot dive deeper into this now. We need to keep focus on the starter kit at this point. What we can also take a look at here is the organization of the subparts. So one more that I mentioned, forgot mentioning, is 34 maps. So this is where we are going to store basically maps towards all of the different parts of the system. These are entry points to find information. So let's suppose I want to find information about burnouts that I have in my system. Don't have that much, but these are the notes I have about that topic. I want to think about ideas, then I have different notes about ideas, and I have quotes about ideas, and those are captured inside of maps of content, inside of the maps. I have bases also, and Obsidian bases, we will come back to this, will be interesting. So these are maps. There's also inside of the areas a space for contact information, so people that you know. You have, actually this one doesn't exist anymore. I forgot to delete it in my own vault. So we have a space for voice notes, a space for people notes, so notes about persons. So I have a note about Alan Kay, Alan Watts, things like that. So you can see that there's different information in there. We will come back to this. So these are all spaces that are dedicated to a certain type of note. So meeting notes I place in here, notes about people and contacts I place in here, voice notes go there, I have maps. And then if we dive deeper into the literature and permanent notes, you can see that there is an inbox. Most of the content goes inside of the content folder. Same thing for the permanent notes. There is a content folder. I have a space for book notes because I like capturing information about books in dedicated notes. What more can I say about this one? We will come back to book notes later. And then I have more separations because I like isolating certain types of notes. That's personal, but I think that it's valuable for other people as well. So content in general. So these are ideas about all sorts of topics. And as you can see, there's no subfolder per topic in there. It's just one folder for most of the content. Then there are just different folders for specific types that I decided to isolate from the bulk of the content. That's just a design choice. You can change that if you want, but many different things in the starter kit depends on this. But as you can see, and this is the key part, is that if you are taking literature notes or if you are taking permanent notes, it's not like you're going to spend time creating folders. That doesn't make sense. It's all right, and it's highly recommended actually to put as many as you can inside of the content folder, because that works well, that scales well, makes it easy to recognize duplicates and things like that. And it's easy to search because we are not searching most of the time based on the folders, but rather based on the tags and the metadata. Okay, so this is most of what you need to know about the folder structure. I could say more, but we will come back to different parts later. All right, so now we have covered this part. Let's continue with the plan. So folder structure, we have discussed the base of it, the bar method, Johnny Decimal, and the Zettelkasten method with atomic nodes. As you can see, there are different links in there. You will find all of those in addition to other resources. Inside of this note, I will publish it along with the recording, and so you can dive deeper into what I explored. The next important part of the starter kit, really central, is the node types. So as I said, we have support in the starter kit for capturing different types of information. And the structure itself, as we saw, is highly type-centric. It's not focused on topics, but rather on what is this? What is this? What content type is this? So these are goal nodes, these are plan nodes, these are project nodes, these are task nodes, these are personal nodes, these are routine nodes, and I could go on. Basically, there is a one-to-one mapping between all of those folders and specific node types. And so this is the next thing that we need to dive into, because that's basically supporting all of the rest. So the node types, this is the full list of node types that are included in Starter Kit. I will not dive into all of those in high details, but we can take a look at those. So first node type is AI prompt. So there is a way to capture, there is support for capturing AI prompts and organizing those automatically within the structure. So those are stored inside of this folder automatically. So we can give it a try if you want. We are going to create the AI prompt test. This is an AI prompt. Okay, give it 5 stars, whatever. And if I click on it, you can see that we just ended up here inside of 56. That was organized automatically. And that's the same principle for the other types. So I'm not going to do it for all of those, but you get the idea. We have the basis node types. That's just basically the Obsidian basis that we will come back to. We have boards. So these are Kanban boards and task boards. We have the book node type, so to capture information about books. And this provides a way to capture metadata about books, like the author, the description, the keywords, the link to the book homepage, but also, so not only metadata, but also your own notes about the books. And so this serves a double purpose. On one end, you get to keep track of your books and, for instance, your reading status. And on the other, you can capture your own notes about the content. So if you are reading nonfiction, then this is a great way to capture the information that you've learned from specific books. Then we have seen that we have contact notes. We have person notes as well. So these are a bit below here. We have curated content. So this provides a way, and I actually didn't cover this in the structure, but inside of the permanent notes, you can see that we have here creations. So that's one part, but also we can curate information. And actually, I'm missing something here. So I think it's here, sorry. And so in the literature notes, we have the curated part. So this is where you are going to curate information. So you can curate articles that you have found interesting or that you want to read later. You can capture movies that you want to watch, tweets that you found interesting, videos, YouTube videos, whatever, papers, if you're doing research. Forgot to cover those while discussing the literature notes, but you can curate content, and we have the curated content node type. We also have the highlights. So if you read some piece of content and you want to capture information about the different parts, let's say that you found one sentence really interesting while reading an article, then you can capture that as part of the highlights folder. The typical example is, for instance, you are using Obsidian Web Clipper or Readwise to curate content. And so either you store it in here in the starter kit, that's what I recommend, or you keep it in a separate app. Doesn't matter too much at the end of the day, even though I prefer to use as fewer tools as I can. Then when you consume that content, you will find different pieces interesting and you will capture maybe verbatim, so copy-paste specific parts. And when you do that, you create highlights. And so highlights, again, can be stored in a separate app such as Readwise, but I do recommend importing those or building those inside of Obsidian. And the reason is that then you can get to link ideas together. You can get to link notes in your daily notes with curated content in your curated content folder with highlights that you've captured about that, and you can link all of that together. So curated content, we will come back to it. At this point in time, I haven't had time to import my own stuff yet. It's still in Readwise. It's been pending for a while. We have dots. I will discuss the dot system later, but basically I consider this as a way to capture really, really short notes. So we discussed atomic notes. Basically, dots are atomic notes made much smaller. This is interesting, for instance, to capture your own principles, your own rules, your life lessons, your wins, your failures, and things like that. Then we have expressions, fleeting notes we have discussed. We have folder notes. I will come back to this later or not. It doesn't matter too much. But basically, if I click here, see, I just clicked on a folder and it opened a note. And the way this works is this folder contains a note that is the same name as the folder, and the folder notes plugin that is included in the starter kit will open that automatically. This is nice because it means that you can create home pages for specific folders. And in my case, I rely on this because since I'm publishing my notes, I want each folder to have basically an entry point. So we saw the goal notes, we discussed the highlights a bit, the literature inbox, literature notes, a few maintenance notes, the maps. I'm just trying to see if I'm not forgetting important things. We have support for maps of content. I opened one earlier, so whoops, do this one. Let's go back to this one. So this is a map of content, and this is one of the node types that are supported out of the box by the system. And so these are easy to create, as we see. Okay, the meeting notes we discussed a bit. Periodic notes, so these are for creations. So if you are a content creator or an author or whatever, you can write and store notes for your creations within the system inside of this folder. So in the permanent notes, you have creations, and this is where all of the types of creation notes go. So in my case, I've published many different articles. Those are all part of my vault with the rest. Okay, person notes we have discussed, permanent notes, person one, plans, processes. So as you can see, just to summarize, because I think that you get the gist of it. The Obsidian Starter Kit is really strongly typed, because not only do those node types exist, but they also have, as you may have noticed, each of those has a specific tag that is associated. This means that, and then that's one of the reasons why those things are done the way they are, is I can find in an instant just anything that I want. I want to find all of my book notes. There I go. I can just search for the tag type book note. And as you can see, all of the node types are prefixed by type /. This is a hierarchy of tags that is supported. And what is nice with using nested tags like this, so having a parent tag and child tag and a subchild tag and things like that, is that if I search for, let's say, periodic notes daily, for instance, I'm going to find all of my daily notes in an instant. But if I go one level above, we just search for periodic note, then I'm going to find all of my periodic notes, whether those are daily notes, yearly notes, quarterly notes, etc. And if I go higher and search for type, then I'm going to find basically everything in my vault. But as you can see, there is value in having hierarchical tags. And so while I built the system, rebuilt the system in V3 rather, I paid close attention to leveraging this feature of Obsidian. Okay, so node types we have covered. One more thing that I need to mention about the node types is that it's not just about having an anchor point for a specific type. So each type has a name, each type has a specific purpose, a specific tag, but also a set of properties. So if I take my routing nodes, for instance, those have those tags by default. They are located in that folder by default. They have a dedicated template that is able to create those nodes easily. There is a class that defines all of the properties that are part of it. And then I have also documentation about the different properties that are included. If you don't know about Obsidian properties, it's definitely something to dive into. So basically, when you have a node, you can have metadata about that node. And as you can see, for my daily nodes, I have a ton of metadata. So there is date of that node, the year, the quarter, whatever, information about health that I can capture, anecdotes, challenges, decisions, many, many things that I can capture inside of my daily nodes. And this is true for all of the node types in the system. So here I'm looking at the goals node type. And again, you can see that I capture information about when it was added, when I committed on that goal, when it was completed or abandoned, the current status of that node, specific node. So each of my goals has a status. And that's the same thing for creations in general. So if I have a YouTube video, I can search here for YouTube. I should find it back quickly. Voila. So for my own videos, I capture this information, and you can see that I also have a status field. And not only do I have that metadata property, but it supports different values. And so the system, the Obsidian Starter Kit, also include workflows, basically. So when I create a YouTube video, at first it's just an idea, but then it goes into my backlog. Maybe I plan it for the year, for the quarter, or this week. Then it's in progress because I start working on it. Once I'm done recording, it's recorded. Once I'm done editing, it's edited, etc. And I have developed basically workflows for many different types of notes. And I will go back to this inside of the template. So we have seen a bit about node types. I discussed a bit about tagging, and actually I think that you know just about enough. One thing that I need to mention is the zone system. So inside of the Start Kit, what I did is, in V3 at least, I created different zones. So these existed before, and they correspond to the main folders in the structure. The idea is that I want to recognize more easily or find specific categories of nodes more easily. And so if I want to find all of the nodes that I have about actions, what I can do is two things. So first, I can search, just like we did before, I can search for type/action, because all of my nodes have that normally. Maybe I'm mistaken with the specific tag in this case. Wait, back to the node types. Yeah, that's the demo effect. Yeah. Let's look at the goal. So type goal. Yeah, actually, it's the zone actions. I'm mistaken. And actually, it makes me realize that this is something I could improve. So I have type/goal, but I could have done this instead. It would have been better in a sense. Let's keep it this way. But in any case, I did create the action zone. And so what I can do is actually just search for this tag. And now I will find all of the action nodes inside of this system. Yeah, sorry for the wrong example. Okay, so the zone tags, the zone nodes are quite interesting. So coming back to it, because I'm not sure I've mentioned, but basically we have all of those zones. And as you can see, those map the top level folders of the structure. Okay, I need to focus again. All right, let's dive into the next big part of the Starter Kit. So node types are, as I said, really, really central. Tagging supports the node types by associating each node type with a specific tag. And then the thing is that you don't want to have to think about doing this yourself all the time. If I want to create meeting notes, for instance, like this, today, shop with blah, blah, blah. So if I were to create a meeting load like this, then I would have to think about, okay, this is a meeting, only 25, 11, 18. The agenda, we did this, we did that. Then let's discuss those. Then we had some minutes. And during the minutes, we captured some information. And we took some decisions, and we can capture the decisions. But then it's not, each time you create a node, you would have to think about, okay, I need to include this and that and that. You don't want to do this all day long because that's boring and it will be difficult to be consistent. Also, my node was created in a root folder. That's not what I want. I want to respect and leverage the structure that is in place. And my node just has basic properties because I have a plugin that adds those, but I don't have any more details. So instead of doing that, what you can do is actually apply the meeting note template. So if I hit Alt-B, it's opening the templates list. And using this, I can select one of the templates. You can see that the naming conventions are built in. And I have this meeting note template. So if I just type meet, start of meeting, then it filters down a list and I can select the meeting template. And now it's been applied. So here I'm in source mode. I'm going to go back to edit mode. And you can see that this time it's better because the name, the title of that note was set according to the name of the file, name of the note. So these two match perfectly. I have my list of participants. I actually forgot to add that, so now I can complete it. And I have all of the sections that I want to have for such notes. In addition, the note is not anymore in the root, but rather it's inside of the 2025 meetings folder. And last but not least, because I have used the meeting template, I did not only get the created and updated metadata fields, but I actually got all of those properties configured correctly. So I have the date, the year, the quarter, and I have those default tags. So the note type tag was added, as well as the zone tag. And see, this is the benefit of using templates. It ensures that you are consistent with the way you create content. And it automatically organizes the content. All right. So as I said, we have templates for many, many different things. And so we are going to cover these 2 points together, the templating and the automated filing. So let's start with the templates. So as I said, we are going to dive deeper. And the goal is not to just describe the salesy stuff of describing what's inside and then why it's there, but actually I want to show you today how it's done. So inside of the 50 resources, 54 templates, you have the templater folder. Thing is that we are using a specific Obsidian plugin for templates. So if you look at the core plugins of Obsidian, so those are built in when you install Obsidian, you can see that they have a templates plugin. The plugin that I'm using is not templates, even though I have it enabled. That's the built-in of Obsidian. But rather, what I'm using is the templater plugin. It's a community plugin. Normally, you would have to install it, but it's included in the starter kit along with many other ones. This plugin basically is the same thing as the built-in templates plugin, but it provides many, many more features. Basically, you can write entire programs. And I say this as a software developer, you can do real cool stuff with templater. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. So the first thing to notice here in the configuration of this plugin is it's pointing to the folder that I mentioned where all of the templater plugins are stored. Again, coming back to my previous point about plugins, so the starter kit comes along with many plugins. And not only that, it also comes with those pre-configured. So here, you will not have to configure this yourself. It's done automatically out of the box. When you open the starter kit folder, you will get that configured correctly already. And that's the same thing for most of the other plugins that are included where specific configuration was needed. So for instance, for the journal, for daily notes, weekly notes, etc., I'm using the periodic notes plugin. And you can see that it has the naming conventions baked in, plus the template integration baked in. It has the journal folders mapped for each type. And so this configuration is done for you by default. All right, let's focus now on the templates. I'm going to dive into a few templates just to show you the way it works. Just checking if I still have sound. Yes, okay. Was scared for a second there. Okay, so if we take a look, we are going to open multiple ones so that you can see how it's done. So the templates that are built in the starter kits look like this. So first, there is the section about metadata. So with templater, we have to use these tags to add basically a comment. The thing is that if we look at the notes, so let's take my daily notes for today. I look at the source. You can see that the metadata part, so the properties, are isolated by these 3 dashes. So this is what separates the part about properties from the part about content. This is the front matter as it's called, and it's YAML that is used there. And if it's syntactically correct, then when you're not in source mode, you get this nice properties view that is just basically displaying the same information, but more nicely. All right, so coming back to this template, you can see that we have this preamble, so it's adding the 3 dashes that we need at the start of the properties part. Then we have the end, so these represent the front matter. You can see that this specific AI prompt template adds a rating property, and the value for that property maps the different values that have been defined for this node type. So if we go back to node types, the system, and we go to AI prompts, we'll just need to find this section, you can see that it has a rating property and that the possible values are these. And if you look at the template, you can see that by default, there will be no value, but you can then select one of those. So let's try it out. We are going to create AI prompt, blah, blah, blah. Okay, no choice by default. Then you get to choose the value that you want. If you don't select one, then you just end up with an empty rating property. But if you do select one, you need to go back to the source mode. But like that. Okay, once I select one, then this time value that I selected what was used inside of the created node. And again, as usual, it was fine where it belongs. Okay, so coming back to this template. So we have this rating property, a nodes property. This is something I need to mention. The nodes property is something that I have added to most node types. The reason is, since now we have Obsidian bases, it's useful to have a property that you can display in bases and that you can use to add meta information about the node. And so if I have an AI prompt, let's say, that I create, I can use this nodes property to describe it, for instance. And that's quite nice to have and to use. So you could also add new ones. And that's one thing to mention. Those templates are not set in stone, not at all. So they come just to map the existing node types, but it's up to you to customize the structure, to customize the tags and whatnot. I will come back to this because we have some constraints about the customizations that you can do or the impact, because you just have to know basically what we are going to cover today in the rest of this talk. You have to know about the intricacies and the links between the different parts before you can just modify or create new folders, if you want to just embrace the way the system works and not break it. So just to give you an example, this type tag is added by the template. That's one thing. But if there is an Obsidian base that leverages this specific node type tag, and you have changed it, then the base will not work anymore. Same thing for the periodic nodes. As I mentioned, the plugin has been configured. It knows about the daily node template and the folders and the structure. So if you rename the journal or the daily nodes folder to something else, then this will break. And so you need to understand how to approach changing things and what the impact is going to be. All right. So go back to this one. So this is interesting to take a look at. So this template includes code, and this is the way we can embed code within a template of template. This is code that will get executed when the template is applied. And what this does is it defines first where this node should go. So this is the target folder property, that's a variable that's been defined, constant. And basically you can see that this AI prompt template states that AI prompts should go to that folder. So that's one part of the automations that we have. We basically say that whenever you apply this template to a node, then it will be moved. And this is what this line does. It will be moved to the target folder with the file title name. Sorry. So yeah, this automates filing nodes when you apply templates to those. So that's why each time I create a node and apply a template, it moves where it belongs. All right. And this last part is also interesting. So this is an expression with templator. So you have to look at the documentation about templator to fully understand what you can do. But basically, this is the templator API. This gives information about the current file, so the file that is getting the template applied to it. And this is the title of the file. So basically, this part here on top. So that's one way to retrieve that and add it. That's why my meeting note earlier received the title of the file as the title of the note. And the last thing here is we are setting the end user cursor at this location in the file once the template has been applied. That's it. That's all this thing does. And so, as you can see, the node types, as I said, are central, very central to the system, but the templates are also very central because the templates are the ones that ensure that you include the right tags, the right properties, that the nodes get moved to where they belong, that the nodes contain the structure that they need. So we can take a more interesting example. So this is the template for book notes. You can see we have many properties here being added. We have the type tags. We have the zone tags also. We have the title of the book note. We have the title set here for the note itself, but we also have structure. So inside of the templates, you can not only add properties and titles and whatnot, but you can also organize the content properly. So in this case, we have a description of the book. We can list different quotes that have been captured. This I will explain a bit later, etc. And so this is the structure for book notes. And this is true for all node types. So here, for daily notes, for dots. Dots are quite particular. I will come back to this. I will show you the template later. But you can see that most of those are quite similar. So apart from a few exceptions or more complex cases like this one, many are quite basic. The thing is that goal nodes are asking different questions. So first, what is the status of that goal? When do you want to achieve it? How important is it or urgent is it? What's the impact of doing it? How complicated is it going to do that or achieve that goal? What's the priority overall? So you can compare different goals together. And so these are the different properties of goal nodes. And those, again, are fully documented in the user guide of the starter kit, so you can find information back there. Again, that's a target folder, a specific structure, but this is not set in stone. As I said, you can fully customize the structure as you want. This is impacts less, so this you don't need to worry about. But this is, a bit more sensitive. So you rename folders for specific node types, then you have to know about these. If you change tags or whatever, you have to know about these. So this is a bit finicky. All right, I think that I've covered what I wanted to cover about the templates. Maybe some more examples actually. So as I said, these blocks, inside of these blocks, you can actually write programs. So we saw already the parts that moves automatically the node where it belongs, so based on the target folder that's been defined. But in the case of meeting notes, for instance, the logic is a bit more involved. So meeting notes are not just set inside of one folder, but they are organized by time frame. So if I open my meeting notes, you can see that it's organized by year. So each meeting note belongs inside a folder that corresponds to the year. And the logic to do that is implemented here. So first we take the current date based on the file name. So the title of the note needs to have this naming convention. So year, month, and date. We extract that from the title and then we split it. And we take different parts, and the first part, so the year, is what we use here. So it's date part 0. I told you it was going to be a deep dive. We take the first part, so the first 4 digits, and we use that as year. And then we say, okay, the target for this meeting note is this folder, then the year, and then the note. Okay, that's why, meeting notes get filed correctly where they belong. Okay, one more example, the map of content. The map of content includes aliases by default. So aliases is something interesting to know about Obsidian. One node can have many different titles. And so maybe this is a good example, I'm not sure. Does this have aliases? No. Okay. Anyways, we will come back to this later, maybe. But basically, just to clarify here why this alias is set is if I open my productivity mock, for instance, my map of content for productivity, you can see that the name of the file has a suffix. It's just a naming convention to recognize that this is a map of content about this topic. The title of the note itself is just the same, but if I look at the properties, there is an alias, and that alias is actually the title of the map of content without the suffix. And that's just how it's done. So we take the file title, we put it to lowercase, we replace mock by not mock, basically remove that part, and then we just use uppercase and lowercase to have a good-looking name, basically. But so when you create a note and apply the mock template, then again, this is done for you. All right. This we will need to come back to, again, technical detail, let's say, but quite important, actually. This is another complex example. So if we take a daily note like this one, you can see here that the starter kit includes these links that help you navigate between days and weeks and years. This is quite useful because if I want to look at tomorrow's daily note, I can click there, previous days also. So it's easy to use. I can go to my yearly note, to my quarter note, to the month, to the week, different levels. So how is this done? Inside of the template, usual structure, same trick for extracting the year and placing the note where it belongs at the correct level. This is a monthly note. Let me take daily note template so we have a one-to-one match. Okay, so we store those daily notes inside of a year and then inside of a week folder. This is how we get those values. So again, we take the file title. We know that it should have this or respect this naming convention. Then we take the year part. We just format the dates to year, format the date to week, and then we have the parts that we need there. This is JavaScript. So if you don't know programming and you want to be able to write such things, then you have to learn about JavaScript. Okay. And one good trick about this is you can debug templates. So if you hit Ctrl-Shift-I, you can see the console of Obsidian. And if you apply a template and have included log commands here, you will see those in the console. That's good to know. Okay, so this one, what does this do is it creates, so this part is creating all of the navigation links. So these parts. First thing is we have a left angle symbol, a right angle symbol. We have separators. We have slashes that we use in between. So we just have constants that define those. Then TR is basically the template. So this is adding lines to the output. So what we do here is we add the hash symbol. So this one, so it's for the first level. So basically we write this. And then we write date and then a new line. So we go to the line. So basically by doing this one, formatting the date to a day, we get this. Then we add a new line. So we are here now. We add the left angle. So this is the one. Then we have space brackets. That's for the link. So we are creating the link to the year. We have written these two. We take the year, just format the current date or the date of that node as that. Actually, it's the current date because it's the moment we apply the template. We format it to year and we close the link, the Obsidian link, and then we add a slash after a space. And this is why we get this like that. And yeah, you can see the principle is the same for the rest, so I'm not going to go over all of those, but basically it's just adding to the output lines after line after line after line with all of the content that is needed. And so yeah, it looks scary, complex, whatever, but it's actually not. It's just adding things one after the other. And so once that section is done, so we have the last right angle, this one, we go to the line, so this is this, and then we have this block with this month and this year. This is using a plugin called Progress Bar, I think, and this is the code behind it. So here I can click on that, and it's just this syntax. It's not something that I like so much, but yeah, it's quite interesting to see it from time to time. And so this is just the syntax of that specific plugin. So it's called the Progress Bar. Where is it? Yeah, I think they've changed the name, so I might not find it back quickly. I thought it was Progress Bar, but not anymore. Yeah, this. Or maybe they don't have settings. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, they don't have settings, so that's why I couldn't find it. But yeah, so this is this plugin. Then here, this is just the base structure that is included with emojis. So that's nothing specific there. And that's it for the daily note template. Yeah, I think that these are the most complicated one that is included in the starter kit is the publish template. So if you want to look at an actual program, you have to look at that one. This one uses the Dataview plugin and some other things to process notes before publishing. I needed this because when I publish my notes, I want to make sure that all of the links that are included are up to date. And the way I do this is I list all of the files in my vault. This is the API of Obsidian. So if you use inside of a template or template app.something, you are actually using the Obsidian API. So they have documentation about how that works. Basically, you can do a crazy ton of things with this API. And in this case, what I'm doing is I'm asking the app to give me the vault. And for the vault, I'm asking, give me all of the modern files that you know about. Then I organize those, and then I use the Dataview Serializer plugin, and then I loop over each of the files in my vault. I'm skipping deleted files because they may still be in memory at that time, but then I just want to check basically, did I mark that node as public already or not, if it has been published. So I have a list of all of the nodes that have been published. This is recovered using this API. So through the app, I can get the core plugins of Obsidian. I take the publish plugin of Obsidian, And then I ask it to list all of the files that I have published. The reason why I do this is I publish notes. Wait, so if you about that. Yeah. So I published this little tutorial that I wrote after fixing issues with my Omarchi, or rather IntelliJ installation of Omarchi. When I did that, I needed to make sure that this was up to date. And up to date in the sense that when I publish a note, to recognize that it's been published, I have this public note property. And this is what my publish template does, in addition to a few other things. So this is, I'm not going to just review all of those details. I think that too few people are actually publishing, so might not be the best use of your time. But if you have questions about that one, we can dive deeper together. Okay, let me go back to the plan. So I think that by now you have a good idea about the different node types, the tagging system, so how we tag nodes in the system, I mean. Now, coming back to those tags, so I have a note, for instance, about atomic nodes. Each node that you create inside of your system, whether it's a literature node, a permanent node, or some other type of node, you are going to get out of the box the type tag, the zone tag, but then it's up to you to add more tags. This is not something that the starter kit does currently. So this node about atomic nodes has been tagged with PKM, note-taking, note-making, writing, concepts. These are my choices, and you will have to make similar choices for your own nodes. And that's a highly recommended thing to do, because once you have tags, then you can search for those, just like we did before. You can create maps of content. You can leverage bases to quickly find the nodes that are relevant. And basically, the tags are the things that avoid the need to have dedicated folders to find specific things back. If I want all of my notes about note-taking, it's easy. I just do this, and I do note-taking, and I get those. All of those nodes have been tagged with that. So here, example, that one, note-taking, it's there. So yeah, just a small point about tagging. Okay, templating and templates. Just to come back to some more gory details. So as I said, we are using the templater plugin. I'm pointing to the templater folder, so the one where all of the templater templates are located. So this is where you need to go if you want to customize your templates or add new ones. Certainly, if you want to add new ones, you need to know that these should be located there. We have syntax highlighting, so that's just an option that when you are in edit mode, you get to see the different colors for code. I think that you might have noticed that. Apparently, they have syntax highlighting on mobile. Didn't know about that, but yeah, I'm not going to enable that. Okay, this option is important. It's enabled by default with the starter kit. This is what enables the template cursor instruction that we saw before to work. So let me show you. We have a plan, for instance. Inside of the plan, we have tp.file.cursor. This will set the cursor at that location. So let me try it out. I create a plan. It's a plan. I apply it. Just look at my cursor and where it goes. See, it went directly to this location. As I said before, this is because we have this instruction, and this instruction works because we have enabled this setting. It was a bug in previous versions. Didn't notice that I needed to set that. And so some people complained about the fact that it wasn't working, but this is the reason why. Okay, what else do we have to say about this? So here we have enabled trigger templater on new file creation. It's actually a way to associate templater with nodes. So it makes it easy to automatically apply templates to new nodes created in specific locations. But the thing is that to have that, we have to configure folder templates. This is actually something that I intend to do in a future version. The usefulness of that would be that if you map one specific folder, let's say we have journal, we have daily notes, we can associate that with the daily notes template. Once this association is made, and we will test it, try this out now. I think this will be for the next version because it is quite cool. So let's say that I have daily notes and I create a new note. I'm going to, that failed actually. So maybe this is not a good example. So if you've noticed, because I have created this new note inside of the daily notes folder, and because I have this configuration here, Templater automatically applied the template to that note. The thing is that I did not have time to set the right name, meaning that the expressions that are in that Templater template, so the TPL daily note, failed because they expect to find a date there. That's the reason. But that's a stupid example in this case. Let's forget that. But it would work more nicely with other types of notes. And that's good to know. I will experiment with it for the next version. Not going to do it now. Okay, what else can I mention? You can add, that's good to know, hotkeys for your template. So if you don't want to select specific template each time, or there is one that you are using very often, then you can add a shortcut to map it and use it easily. This is something that I will explore also in future versions. You can have starter of templates. And as I said, in template of templates, you can actually write programs, which means that we or you could create a template, anyone would do. You could create a template that includes code that you want executed whenever Obsidian gets started. And that's really powerful. I think there are very cool things to do with, but I fiddle with that later. Okay, so we have user scripts here. I'm just pointing to the scripts folder. I did not create any so far, but it might be interesting to explore as well. All right, so that's it for Templater and templates. One last thing that we will discuss about templates is the queries that you can find in some of those. So best example is the maps of content. You can see that when you create a map of content, so let's do it. Let's create a map of content about, I don't know, I need to find a topic that I don't have a map of content for as of now. I don't know actually. Basis. Basis map would be fun. Let's do that. Basis. So I'm going to apply a template. This is a map of content. I'm applying basis to it, and it did this for me. I don't have any notes with that tag, so it's a bad example. But see, just what I wanted to show you is when you apply the mock template, it does the usual things that I mentioned before. So based on the name, it sets the title. There is a base structure that is included. But then here you get those query to serialize entries. In this case, there's nothing there because I don't have any notes with basis. But you can see that the query was added automatically for me by the template. This is a plugin that I've created. It uses the Dataview plugin to serialize queries, to find the results of a query. So execute a query, get the results, and then the plugin serializes the results. The reason why that thing exists and why it's included in the starter kit is if you open the notes with another text editor and you are using classic Dataview queries, then you will not get to see anything. But with this, you will, because this will serialize the results of the queries. I know this might be completely difficult to understand. So let me make it more concrete. So what we are going to do is, since I don't have any notes about basis, I have two choices. What I will do is create a note about basis. Basis, blah, blah, blah. So this will be one. It will be, let's say, a permanent note. Doesn't matter for now. Okay, I'm going to tag it with basis. So this is the tag that the other thing will be looking for. So we have basis. Then I have the Obsidian basis page. So about Obsidian basis, good example. Actually, I can tag this with basis as well. Okay, so now I have two notes about basis. Now we are going to go back to the basis mod that we created. Okay, still empty at this point. Now I have one. Why don't I have two? Because that's specific to my own vault. It's not the case in the starter kit, but in my own vault, my queries only include nodes that are public. So I'm going to change that. All right. Now I have the two of those. So see what happens with these queries. So I'm going to delete that so you can see it again. It was automatically added back by the templates. And this is the point behind it. So first is you define a query, and then the plugin detects it automatically and executes that query, gets the results, and writes the results inside of the node just below the query. So this is the query. So this query says, list all of the nodes that have the tag basis and that are not quotes and not my own quotes, and sort those by file name in ascending order. And because I have this query written this way, the plugin runs, executes it, gets the results. So these are the results, and it serializes those as actual markdown. Now, the nice thing is, if you open this file with any text editor, you will get the exact same content. You will see this. But to contrast this with the default Dataview plugin, so with the Dataview plugin, what you do is you write this, and you get the idea that you get the same thing. But this is not the same thing. This is rendered live. This is what I see inside of Obsidian. Now, if I were to open this specific file with Notepad or Visual Studio Code or whatever else, Nano, Vim, Emacs, what you would see is not this. What you would see is this, only this, because this is part of the text file, and this is just what the Dataview plugin does for you. So this executes queries and shows you the results. My plugin, so not Dataview, but Dataview Serializer, what it does is it executes and then it actually adds markdown to your files. To me, that's really important for two reasons. First, I publish my notes on the web, and I don't want this to show in my notes website. This doesn't make sense. This has no value. If I take my KM mock, so my notes about maps of content, this is actual content that will be available on my notes website because it's actual markdown. It's going to be actually included in the page that I publish, and people will get to be able to click on the links and see it. If I were to use these queries instead, I would only see that on my published notes. And yeah, that wouldn't be so great. So yeah, that's the reason why the MoCs and other types of nodes, including the daily notes, actually embed such queries. So now you have a bit more information about how this works. So by default, you can write Dataview queries if you have the Dataview plugin installed. And this is included in the Starter Kit. But in the Starter Kit, I decided to not only include Dataview, but also my own plugin, and to include usages of that plugin in different node types, so in the templates of different node types. So this is the case for maps of content and for other ones. All right, let me delete this. Not going to need it anymore. Coming back to the templates, let's quickly look at the different templates that include such queries. Now that you understand why these exist, the board type we can look at a bit later, book note as well. So daily notes, if we go to the bottom, you can see that we have the list of notes that were created on this date and the list of notes that were modified on this date. Again, it's just using my plugin to serialize the results of the queries, in this case as a table, not as a list. And so that's why you get at the bottom of your daily notes these listed like that. Oh, this is going to disappear once it's updated. Can delete it if I want. Oh yeah, that's one thing to know is, you can delete the serialized versions of your queries anytime the plugin will automatically detect and reapply those for as long as the query remains. So in the daily notes, we have this one for the notes created today, this one for the notes created on that week. And I think I have a few more examples that also do this. And that's the cool thing. With the Dataview plugin, you can actually create very complex queries for many things. Okay. I'm not going to dive deeper into all of those because the details of those queries, you have to learn about Dataview if you want to be able to write such queries. In this case, notice that we are mixing two things. So we are mixing three things, actually. So we have Dataview queries, we have the Dataview Serializer plugin that executes and serializes the query, and inside of the template, what we are doing is generating this part of the query dynamically. That's a cool trick that you can use inside of your templates as well. So I didn't want to hardcode whatever tag because that doesn't make sense since those queries need to apply for the specific mock they are applied to. And so instead what I did is use the templater plugin to generate the tag dynamically. That's why if I open my productivity mock again, you can see that here it says productivity. It was taken from this. So we removed the mock part, then we put that lowercase, and if there were spaces in the name, like in this case, time management, it replaces spaces by underscores. And so as long as you've been consistent with the way you use your tags, this will work quite nicely. Now, that being said, if you create a mock and you cannot or you do not get the tag that you would like to associate it with, it's all right. As long as you don't reapply the mock template to it, what you can do is just change this to whatever, and you will get the content that you want. Just don't forget that there are two things to that. First, the notes, and I have separated the quotes. If you don't leverage that, then we can remove this from the template, actually. All right. I mentioned the books, but the books will keep the note open, but we will come back to it later because there are a few interesting things to notice about this one. It's a special template. Okay, so templating, I think we've covered quite a lot already. Automatic filing. You saw in the templates the code that moves the note automatically. There is more than that. There's also a plugin called AutoNote Mover plugin. The AutoNote Mover plugin, again, something that is included by default in the starter kit. Here you will not see it actually because I removed it from my vault. I'm not using it anymore. I rely now on those template expressions, but just to show you what it is, basically with the AutoNote Mover plugin, that honestly I think I will get rid of in the next versions, but for now it's still useful. You can configure, and the starter kit includes a set of rules that map basically folders to tags. And what this does is, if you have a note that contains that tag, then the plugin will automatically move it to that folder. And you can create and add such rules. The starter kit includes a number of those rules. But now that the yeah, now that I found this trick basically to move nodes around, the AutoNode Mover as plugin has less value than before. And moreover, I'm working right now on a plugin that I will include in the starter kit. It will not be a public community plugin, I think. That one will support the different node types, and it will also support automatically moving nodes where they belong. And once that is delivered as part of the starter kit, then yeah, AutoNode Mover plugin does not have any usefulness anymore. But yeah, for now it's still used. Okay. Now that we have seen about templating and automated filing, node properties I covered a bit. I don't think it's relevant to go into detail about all of the properties that are included. We can do it for some. Maybe I can do it for the action nodes as part of our discussion of the action system, but I have to move forward. One more thing to know about the node properties, and that's important if you decide to customize those or add new node types or delete node types actually, is that we have the metadata menu plugin and a set of reference classes. The classes, the plugin first, metadata menu plugin, is a plugin that you can use to maintain your nodes correctly. Again, this is something I think that will disappear in the next version of the starter kit. I actually don't think it's still in my vault at this point. No, I've already removed it. So this is my vault. But with that plugin, what you get is something similar to what I've now built with the Obsidian Starter Kit plugin. You get icons next to each property in the properties view, and you can edit the values. Nothing fantastic. But what's more interesting is that you can select values. So let me give you an example. So just take a goal node. Yeah, let's do that. So I want to write a book about PKM. It's a goal node, and goal nodes, as I said earlier, have a status. Now, the main issue I have with Obsidian at this point is that it does not support node types, and that would be great. I proposed it as a feature. It was not considered for now. I think they have other priorities. That makes sense. But the issue is that this is strongly typed. So my status field has specific values that are allowed. And the problem is that since there's no way in Obsidian to enforce those rules, then I could type this and basically I would break the system. Also, if I do that, I would normally not get this list of values. And actually look at what I get. This is not good because basically it's mixing the values of different properties that are called status. Because that's the way Obsidian works. It knows that there is a status property that have appeared on different nodes, and it has seen those values on those different nodes, and now it just proposes all of those values mixed because it sees its status. And that sucks. That doesn't make sense because the statuses for my goals are not the same as the statuses for my videos. And that's not what I want. And so coming back to what I was saying, we have this metadata menu plugin, and the metadata menu plugin for now, what it does is help you update values using the right ones. Thing is that I cannot demonstrate it here. To show you, I would have to stop and restart using the Obsidian Starter Kit Vault because I have modified it. Actually, I will do it because I want to show you what it looks like right now in the Starter Kit Vault. Okay, so let me open this one and share my screen again. Window. Okay, so this is the default vault of the Starter Kit. Now, inside of this one, you can see that we have the metadata menu plugin. I will come back to the configuration in a bit, but what I want to show you is that if we create a goal, so we are going to create a new goal. It's a goal. We are going to apply the goal template to it. Let's keep the values. Then if here I click on status. First, you can see that does not provide auto-completion for this. That sucks. But as I said, that's just Obsidian. But the Metadata Menu plugin, what it does is provides you with those buttons. And when you click those, then what you get here are actually the correct values. Now, that's nice because it means we can associate properties for specific node types with very specific values. This is great because you can enforce and be consistent. Now, if you decide to change in the templates the list of values, then you have to know about the Metadata Menu plugin configuration if you want to also adapt that. Because then there are three things to do. You need to adapt templates, you need to adapt the Metadata Menu plugin configuration so that new nodes will get the correct values and the Metadata Menu plugin will propose you the correct values. But then you also have to update all of your past nodes to understand that. And the last but not least, you have forgot that, but you have to update the bases if you are using those. You should keep those around because bases also understand and use some of those values for certain queries. We will come back to that point. But so the way the Metadata Menu plugin works, let's look at it. So we have the global settings. We have excluded some folders by default because we don't want the plugin to just mess with the templates or mess with AI prompts or whatnot. Doesn't make sense. So we have some exclusions. We enabled auto-completion for fields. What else is interesting to know? Just a certain way of listing the array items. That's a detail. Here we have the presets. File class settings. This is important. So the Metadata Menu plugin works with something they call file classes. So a file class is basically a file that describes a specific class of information. And a class of information for the Metadata Menu plugin is what I have been calling node types from the beginning of this discussion. And so the file classes are located here. As you can see, I put that inside of the templates folder. Let me not break that. Okay. So inside of the templates folder, we have the metadata folder, and we are going to take a look at that next. That's the most important thing to know here. Inside of the config, the rest, mostly details, but these are the places where the metadata menu buttons will appear. And that's it. Okay, so now let me show you those classes. By the way, the Metadata Menu plugin is also the one that adds those icons. So this is a goal. This is a daily note. If I were to create a quote, okay, create one. This is a quote. See, we have very specific icons for each node type, and really cool because those are also displayed in the file explorer. And that means that visually you can easily recognize the different node types that you are looking at. I think that's pretty neat. I added it in v3, and actually it's a feature that I'm going to rebuild with my own plugin so that I can get rid of this one. But anyways, if we look at those, so if we go to 50 resources, 54 templates, we have so the template are templates that we saw before, but we have also those metadata class files. And we can take one as an example so that you can see. We need to look at the source in this case. It's best to edit it maybe with a separate editor, but this works. And basically, it's just a YAML from Mother file. So it's a YAML configuration for metadata menu that explains to metadata menu about one specific type of node in the system. Okay, so I will show you the properties that matter. First is the icon property. This is the one that defines which icon should be used for this specific class, this specific type of node. So in this case, daily nodes have this lucid calendar days icon. These are the built-in icons of Obsidian. So Obsidian embeds the Lucid icon library. If you look it up on the internet, you will find an official website. What viewer? Let me show you this. Oops. I forgot the name of the plugin now. Maybe I did not enable it. That would be surprising. What viewer? Oh, that's surprising. That should have been enabled. I need to enable it in the starter kit. So, nope. Bad example again. Web viewer. Open web viewer. Took me time. So yeah, the web viewer is a core plugin included in Obsidian that you should enable in your Vault. I will actually enable it in the next version of the starter kit that you can use to serve the web. Basically, and show pages inside of Obsidian. So we are going to look for Lucid because that's what I wanted to show you. So Lucid is a set of open source icons. And if you click here on icons, you can see you can search for brain. And if you click on that, you can copy. I think it's done actually already. No, don't remember now. Yeah, but you at least have the name. Yeah, there you can copy it. This is the name of the icon that you need to use. And the way you need to use it is like this. So Lucid, and then the name of the icon. So if I do this, now my daily notes have a brain icon. That's the way this works. Okay, sorry, that took me a while. Then we tell the Metadata Menu plugin that it should recognize how it should recognize those notes or notes of that type. And why it's going to know that this is a daily note? Well, it's because we have configured the class to associate this class with that specific tag. And so any note that has the tag here, type periodic notes daily, is going to get the icon, but is also going to get the support from the plugin for instance, the stage fields and things like that. So yeah, this is one important one. This is a second important one. So the association with the node type. You could also use file paths and so say that all of the nodes that are located in here should have this type applied to them. I decided not to do that because we have dedicated node types, very clear ones with clear tags. And so, yeah, that's much easier, makes more sense. Now, the additional thing that is in here is the list of fields that those nodes contain or should contain. That's useful to know because it means that you can associate each node type, each class here, with specific properties and even with a specific order. So inside of daily notes, still continuing with this example, we have these properties. So the date, the year, the quarter, the month, the week, the day. Then we have a set of properties about health, then anecdotes, etc., etc. This is the list and in order. That's one thing. Then, for each of those fields, and yeah, we are not going to look at all of those lines, but I will just show you a few examples. This describes what is this, what is this, what is this, etc. So for the name, for the date field, it states that this is a date. This is why in my daily notes, I have here a date button. It enables me to select a date because that was defined here as the type of that specific field. Then in some cases, so you have dates, you have numbers. What else do we have? Yeah, in some specific cases, you have specific values that you want to allow or enable. Again, you saw before that in the daily note template, daily notes. Wait, it's been excluded from lists. All right, give me a second to find it back. So inside of the daily note template, you saw that we use the templater plugin to sometimes ask for information. So a good example of that is for goals, we ask many questions. So this is the way we can ask the user to select something. With templater, here the status has different allowed values. Well, inside of the daily note class, we also have a way to state which values are allowed for each field. So the health energy level in the template, so taking the, sorry, maybe I'm going too fast, but in the daily note template, you have this property. So the template will just add this without any value. Then, because I did not want to the templater plugin ask me 50 questions each time I create a daily note. So it does not set a value. But now, because this property is here, or rather, because that property ends up in the note, and because the daily note class has a clear configuration for that here, it knows that the only values that should be allowed for that field are 1 to 10. My health level is not going to be -10, even though there are some days I feel like that. But the nice thing with that is that if I go here and go to energy level, you can see that it proposes only those values. That's a neat feature of that plugin. May show you one more example about this. So I'll take the goals one. So the goal class, you can see that we have icons for most or all of the node types. Quite cool. In the case of the goals, many fields have a set of allowed values. So the status is a select of type select, and it only allows those values. And this matches the template for the goal nodes. So see, when you want, or if you want to customize node types, you have to adapt the templates, you have to adapt the classes, or you can get rid of those. I mean, this is not the end of the day if you delete those, but you will not get the icons, and you will not get the support to edit those easily. So actions, goals. Yeah, I have my goal here. I just want to show you again. So these are properties with selects, and you can see that each time I can select only the right values. There is also another thing that is cool, because we have this configuration of classes with the fields and field definitions that you saw. I think that's about enough about that. Because we have that, if I open a node of a certain type, so in this case a goal, and I delete some properties. Let's say that I have created a node and I made a mistake, or I did not apply its template or whatever, and it's missing some things. What I can do is call a Metadata Menu plugin, and what I can do is bulk insert missing fields. So this plugin has many different useful commands. This is one of those. So this, maybe it will not do what I want in this case, but I've broken it. But it can add the missing fields inside of your notes. And realizing that time flies. We'll not have time to cover everything, so I'll delete a few more. Missing fields. So either I add on the top of the file, but in this case I will add those here around urgency. Okay, and see if it added back fields that were missing, because it knows about the specific type class, node type, sorry. So I think that's important to know. This plugin configuration is nice. I'm going to come back to my own vault now to do this one. Okay. All right, we are back. So Metadata Menu plugin we discussed. Node properties as well. I think that's about enough. Periodic notes, we discussed it a bit, so just keep in mind, and then you can explore the configuration if you want. This plugin has really the mapping of all of the types of notes in the journal. So from the daily notes to the yearly notes, it has a clear naming convention for each that should be respected when creating notes of those types. it automatically applies the template with one small caveat. So if I take today's daily notes, if I click on this button the plugin will know that it has to apply the corresponding template. So if you click on the button, it either opens or creates the daily note. If you right-click on that button and say, for instance, open this week, it will also know that it needs to apply the template. Now, that's because we are using the periodic note plugin, its built-in configuration, or built-in tools, rather. Now, if I click here on this link for Thursday's note, so I've created today's note, tomorrow's note, and not this one yet. This one does not exist. If I click on it, Obsidian is going to create the empty note for me, but it's not applying the daily note template to it. That's because the periodic note plugin did not know what we wanted to achieve. So I could have used one of the commands. So we have next daily note, previous daily note, but yeah, in 2 days, we don't have that command. And so the only way right now, at least with the starter kit, is to click on a note that does not exist and apply the daily note template. That's good to know. I think that it's something that can be fixed. I just didn't take time to dive into it because I rarely actually create many notes in advance. Usually it's next or previous that I've missed, and that's about it. And also, yeah, it just takes a second to go there and click on daily note and apply the template. That's quite fast. All right, that should give you a bit more information about this. So we have different types of the periodic notes. I don't think we need to dive deeper into those. As I'm trying to rush through everything, so it's just too much. So the dot system, it's something that I have included recently in the starter kit, so in V3. My idea with that one is to make a separation between the bulk of your nodes. So these are basically important ideas. Like we have the 20% rule. We have, I don't know, tons of things I have captured, or whatever you are interested in, you are going to take notes about. Now, some notes are special, I would say. I did not have a way or a clear way in my system before to capture things such as what happened to me, apart from inside of daily notes. The things about my success, my failures, things like that. So I wanted to basically enable myself to capture things such as those. So I call those first part inside of the dots the breadcrumbs. So these are things about my past. So for instance, an anecdote, just a few sentences, or maybe even just one sentence. A challenge I'm facing. So it's hard for me to record YouTube videos for some reason. Decisions. I've decided to stop smoking this week. That's done. And I have a trace of that. Same with my experiments, my failures, feedback, things I'm grateful for, a key event in my life, whatever. And the thing is that it's not just about being able to capture those, but to organize those and scale the system over time. So first, breadcrumbs, traces of the past. Second, seeds, so potential for growing in the future. So I have an idea or an insight or something that I think might be relevant for my own future. I can capture those now. Same thing for wisdom. So basically my beliefs, my lessons, my principles, my rules. I would be super happy to give this to my kids. Actually, they have access to it already and they just don't know yet, but because I'm publishing many of those. But basically, I like this idea of distilling knowledge into its essence, the clearest expression of a specific idea or principle or rule or whatever, a statement about life, whatever it is. And so this is why I've created this system with those three different parts. So information about your past, ideas for growth, and knowledge and wisdom. So this is represented inside of the folder structure by this folder, the dots. And so inside of the dots, everything is organized by time frame, because I consider that what is true for me today might not be true for me tomorrow. And so this is why I wanted to organize that by date first. So by year, then by month, and then by type. So in September 2025, I faced apparently one challenge. It was not the only one, I guess, but yeah, the battery of my car was dead. And that's the whole thing that I've captured inside of that note. I do not see myself, or I did not see myself rather capturing these kinds of things inside the rest of my system before, apart from daily notes. But the thing with daily notes is that it's sometimes hard to resurface, just thinking about, okay, on what date precisely did I do that or face that challenge? And so Dots fixed that issue by creating a space where you can capture the small things, basically. So I decided to run 20 kilometers, so a half marathon once. And then for some reason, the next Monday, I tried doing it again. I succeeded. That was fine. And I felt great actually at the end. But 2 days after, I hurt myself. It was stupid. And so this is a lesson for me. This is a dot fail that I've captured in my system and that I can find back in an instant. There are things I'm grateful for. There are key events in my life. So my son turned 4 recently. It was a great moment, just capturing it. And just me looking at this note again. It's really short, it's really small, but it matters to me. And so, yeah, you have these dots with different types, breadcrumbs and whatnot. I think those are valuable. I wanted to discuss those today. Then, of course, as I said, my system is not only for storing information, but also supporting everything I do, including learning. So that's why the system also includes a learning system. So the idea behind the learning system is that there's a structured pipeline to go from whatever you're learning about or discovering to wisdom that you have accumulated. And so you start with the external content. You may create dots directly because maybe you have found something super, super interesting, like a rule for life or 42 is the answer to everything. You can take that quote from that book and you create a dots directly. Or rather, and this is my general recommendation, is you add the information to your daily notes. That's the entry point. You start there. Then from those, or you can also use fleeting notes if you fancy using those. But in a way, you start from external content and then you go to dots, maybe to daily notes, or rather to daily notes first, maybe to dots and maybe to fleeting notes. And then from those, at some point, you are going to extract the information and roll it up inside of literature notes and permanent notes, maybe. And maybe at some point, you will create dots based on your own ideas, based on your own learnings, etc. But the idea is that you have this learning pipeline. So going from the external content, and actually it's more detailed than this, because when you have external content, you're not forced to, but you can leverage the curated content part. So you can capture stuff that you want to explore. Then you can capture highlights about that stuff. Then you can capture information inside of your daily notes, just like I do and recommend most of the time. And then you can go one level higher and create notes, actual notes inside of your literature notes content folder or permanent notes content folder, just to expand and detail things. And from there, you have the whole story. So you have the story from curation to consumption to distillation and basically the whole knowledge management process. Whoops, I just did something wrong there. So yeah, all of the steps of the process. And the system supports this fully because, I have documented the learning system, so you have more details here about that. But you have the DOTS system that we have explored a bit. The daily notes system, we have seen the journal and the periodic notes plugin and configuration. And so you can create those. The Zettelkasten system with the different types here, literature notes, permanent notes, and the subtypes you've seen as well. And so you have everything to connect all of the dots. So coming from something you've discovered or intend to explore down to something you have connected within your knowledge base, ending up with you having a powerful knowledge graph that you can leverage that contains the information you care about, the information that is valuable to you, that you can do something for. Anyways, I shouldn't open my Obsidian graph because it's too big now, so I cannot use that one anymore. Okay, so that's about the learning system. Visualization system, very shortly, that one enables, basically I wanted to fully support different things. So first, text-based information, second, visual information, and then mapping, so spatial intelligence. And so that's why we have, on one end, the notes system based on Zettelkasten and Johnny Decimal and Para that we saw, so the structures. Then we have the maps that enable creating an overview of different topics, like you saw the productivity map that I mentioned multiple times, or the learning map. These are maps. They are indexing content, enabling me to find things back more quickly, more easily too. Then layered on top of that, sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Also support for visual stuff. So inside of the maps, there are MoCs, there are bases. That's another way to drill down and find information back. We will dive into those soon. But also there is a space for visualizations. And so that's where you can organize visual information that you want to store in your vault. And to me, that needs to be first class. It should be just alongside text-based information. I showed you the journaling. I mentioned the journaling deep dive that I did recently. Then that visualization is part of my system along with the rest. And it's not separate from the rest. It's actually highly connected to the rest. You can see that those blue links there, those are all nodes inside of my system. And since visual thinking is also has top-level support in my Obsidian Starter Kit, you can connect and leverage all of those different parts together. So there are different tools that are included in the Starter Kit to support this. Okay, and I realized that I'm really lacking time to dive into all of the details that I wanted to cover. The people system, same thing, but for people, you can capture information about anyone you want. I don't know, Albert Einstein or whatever, whoever else. You can add images, and if you add resources to your vault, those should always or almost always go to 50 resources, 51 attachments. And you can add information about people. You can add a note about a person, apply the person template. One interesting thing about people notes is that just like the other types of nodes, those have properties. I have included a set of social properties, let's say, because I find myself regularly capturing information about the social profiles of certain people that I'm following, that I have an interest in. And so I would capture, for instance, the Blue Sky link, the Twitter link, the LinkedIn link, the Discord or whatever, the websites. And the idea is that you have then in your notes pointers to go back to certain things. And so if you look at the people base, I'm just taking a bit a step ahead regarding bases, but just to show you a second, so we have the contact space. No, I should not show you that one, but rather the public figures cards. So information about people that I'm following, that I am interested in. You can see that I have all of those details, and that's because we have those properties on the nodes. And so these are leveraged by bases. And what I'm saying now is actually true for all of the node types and bases. So bases really take full advantage of all of the properties that we have on the nodes. And that's why in V3 I went quite deep actually on adding properties to all node types, because I can see the value of leveraging properties with bases. Bases are really, really epic, really powerful. So here I have this view, for instance, with social profiles. These are the people I am interested in. You can see that in one view, I can look at all of the links I have from some people, or even see the gaps. So these people, I don't have much information, but it's normal they are not on social because they are dead maybe. Anyway, okay. People system, I think that's about enough. The maps, I think we've covered enough already. We saw different examples of maps of content. It's just nothing special at this point. I think I will go deeper with those later. Capturing information, I will not go over these apart from this, basically. And my general recommendation is, first, you need a capture system. The good news is the Obsidian Starter Kit gives you that capture system. So you have a space for curated content, for highlights. You have a space for daily notes. You have spaces for literature and permanent notes. So you have all of those places inside the Starter Kit to capture information in a structured way. That's quite cool. My recommendation is that you start simple. I really insist on this. And actually, even after having spent years on this, my go-to way to capture notes is inside of daily notes. This is where I spent most of my days, and here actually with my list of tasks. But the thing is that it's just enough, and it's really, really powerful. And you start with that, you capture information there, and then maybe you go one level higher and you extract the information from your daily notes into your weekly notes. And so in one note, you get the information about a complete week. Or, and actually at that point, you can extract and create literature notes and permanent notes and dots and whatnot. But the thing is that throughout the day, and I'm not going to do the journaling deep dive session again, but throughout the day, you are going to capture information here. But it just takes a second. If I want to remind myself about sending information to blah, 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 I can write it down here. It takes a second, and I can go back to whatever I was doing. So to me, this is the most powerful part of the starter kit and the simplest one. You just need the daily notes to get started. All right. So specifically about quotes, there's a quote template, so nothing specific to say. But for books, there is something important to know. So we saw before the TPL books. If I type it correctly. I told you that it was a special template, and it is. The thing is, you can see that there are different tags here that appear. So author, category, cover URL, description, ISBN, blah, 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 blah. This is not a template that you should use directly. And what I mean by that is that if you do, then it will break, basically. So let's create test book. So create book, and I try to apply this template myself. Okay, seems all right. It's a book that I'm reading. Boom, that's done. First problem, this was not replaced. Why? Because, templater doesn't know about the local cover image of that book. Same thing with all of that information. It was not replaced. Why? Again, because the templater plugin does not know anything about that. And now the reason and the way you should be using this book template, if you want to capture information about books, is first you need to know about the book search plugin. So the book search plugin is included in the starter kit. It knows about the folder for book notes. My neck hurts. It has a template for the names of the book notes. It knows about the templates for book notes, so it knows how to apply it. Then it's going to actually use the Google API, one of Google's APIs, I think it's book search actually, to look at books, fetch the information, create the notes for you, apply the template for you, and replace the values that it knows of by the actual ones. So we can maybe try this. Okay, don't have that one. We can create a book note. But the way we are going to create a book note is like this. So we are using the command palette, and we are going to say book search, create book notes. Now we are looking for anti-fragile maybe or something like that by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I have found the book. So this has used Google's API to find a book. I select it. And see now, I'm going to, say that I'm reading it, whatever. At this point, it's done. So it has done its work. What it did, first, it downloaded, the metadata about book, that we'll see in a second, but it downloaded the image and saved it inside my vault, meaning that if that image goes away from the internet, this is not going to break. Also, if I'm offline, this is going to work. That's quite cool. Then it has added information about the author. In my case, I can actually link to the person there. And it has extracted all of the metadata that it could find about the book from the internet. That's quite nice. Actually, I'm not reading this yet. I will change this later because my plugin is a work in progress. It's not working right now. But the metadata plugin would work. All right, so now you have seen why we have those special tags. You know that it's because we are using the book search plugin. It knows about the template, and those tags that we have used there, those you have to look into the documentation of the book search plugin. This is where you can find all of the details about the fields that you can extract, all of the metadata fields that you can extract. And I think that in configuration, we have actually enabled cover image save. So that's why the image was downloaded. And this is where the image was placed. So in the starter kit, it's like that, just 51 attachments. In my case, as I said, I separate between private and public images. Just one note about this. If you are using the book search plugin, know that they have limitations on the number of calls that you can do. So if you try to download information about 100 books in 1 minute, that's going to fail. So you can actually set an API key. Cannot cover here how you can retrieve one, but it's actually quite easy. I think I have a documentation page about that. I will share it. Actually, it should be on the book search plugin page. Yeah, here I documented the way you can do that, so you will get that with the event notes, magic books, and add this one. Okay, so you have the link for this one too. Just give me a sec. All right. Yeah, I'm just organizing the resources that I'm going to share after this workshop. Okay. I don't mind continuing, so we can keep going for a bit. I do have time. And I hope that it's interesting to explore all of those things. As I said, you can capture in your daily notes. You can capture information about people and contacts through person notes and contact notes. So you can create a note about someone and then say it's a contact of mine. Contacts. What did I do wrong? No, wait, I changed this. In V3, it's only person. I need some time to get used to it. But so you select template person, then you choose whether it's a personal contact or a public figure. In this case, it's going to be personal contact, and then you get the content like this. As usual, I mentioned this before, you have Dataview Serializer queries, meetings about someone. Then if any node has a direct link to this person's node, then it's going to be listed. And only if it's a meeting note, and then only if it's a code, and go same logic. But yeah, so you have an easy way to capture information about people. Actually, if we look at the person template, you can see that we have all of those properties. And here you can see how we are asking a question to the user when using the template. So tp.system, so it suggests values. In this case, we suggest 2 values. We have a default, and then we have the question that is asked. And that's why you get the thing like this, asking which one you want. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. So content curation, I actually don't have much to say about it because, as I said, I've been slacking off with this. At this point in time, I still don't have all of my curated information moved into Obsidian. It takes me a ton of time. I have tons of data in read-write, and so it's difficult for me to move over. And I'm a bit lazy about it, simply speaking. There are no specific templates for curated information at this point. I will add some later, but I figured let's not add those directly. I wanted to release v3, but it's not too bad. And also, I wasn't sure that all of the tools that I would use, such as the read-write plugin, would actually support customizing the templates to use for each imported curated node. So that's why for now, there are no templates for this part. But you can create such templates if that works and if you need. You can actually use templates with the Obsidian Web Clipper plugin. The Obsidian Web Clipper plugin is a browser plugin that you can get for free. Actually, I will mention it here. Obsidian Web Clipper, I highly recommend it. I also published a video about it. I think that I might have included it here. Nope. I will link it. I will add a link to it later. And I will send it to you also. So content curation, Obsidian Web Clipper, what else? Content creation, I will not discuss now because I think that it's highly specific. If there is demand, I can dive into it because, it's a mature system. I'm using it daily. Whenever I'm creating content. So all of my creations now, so my articles, my books, the courses, newsletters, videos and whatnot that I'm creating, these I create within Obsidian and I keep track of within Obsidian, and I have an overview and statuses, workflows with those. It works the same way as the content curation part, except that it's more developed. So there are actually templates for all of the types of creations. Okay, next is the action system. So the action system, we can go through it quite quickly. Somewhat quickly. So if you remember, in the actions part, we have one folder containing single nodes for each thing. And so we have one node per goal, one node per task, one node per project, etc. And so that's the starting point of the action system. Everything is located there. Now, to support this, there are multiple things. So first, you have templates for goals. So we have this template that describes a goal node. We have template for task. And I will come back to this. So again, this asks quite a few questions, actually. Doesn't matter too much. We'll come back to that later. But the action system is quite evolved. Evolved in the sense that, not complex, but evolved in the sense that you can really, really use it to basically manage every, from goals to tasks in detail, at scale. Basically, I organize all of my life's work at the moment using this, and it works really, really nicely. As I said before, these have statuses, so there are workflows associated with tasks, with goals, with projects. That's important. Also, see here we have that. I have also designed a system of properties for action nodes. So if I take the documentation of the action system here, there's different levels. So first you have the goals. Maybe I should just take a step back. First you have the goals. Those are the highest level things that you want to achieve. So these can range from short-term to lifelong objectives that you have, things that you want to achieve. Then you make plans. Maybe you need plans, maybe you don't. But if you consider a lifelong goal, then maybe it's best to have a plan. And so you can just realize those or document those, build those inside of Obsidian with the starter kit. Then you can do that with projects. And then if you drill down to the day-to-day level, let's say you have tasks. But the tasks help you achieve projects, which help you make your plans a reality and achieve your goals. So these are all highly correlated. So there are different links. So tasks can have links to projects and goals. Projects can have links to goals and plans. Plans can have links to goals and projects, etc. And regarding the properties, all of the action notes, and that's what I wanted to mention, they have first status management. So they each have a specific life cycle workflow. Then they have progress tracking. So for each level, whether it's a goal or a project or a task, you can keep track of how far you've gone with that one. And that one ranges from 0 to 100. Again, defined here with a default value, defined with a class here inside of the metadata. So it's all connected to each other and clearly documented. Then you have the relationships. So I mentioned that you can link tasks to projects and things like that. This is standardized across all of those through those properties. So these are important and not important. You can decide not to use those. But if you want to have strong links, strong relationships within your system between the different parts, then you can leverage those properties. Let me take an example. I have... No, I will not do it now because it's going to take me a bit to find that one back. Okay, context assignment. So you can list the different contexts in which part applies. So this looks like this. It's just a list. But basically, inside of a project note, you could do, okay, this is in the context of my work, or in context of my life, or in the context of my work on the Obsidian Starter Kit projects, or whatever else. Actually, related projects would be a separate property, but contexts can make sense in that way. Okay, so relationships, the contexts, priority framework. So this is the next big part. Since I want to use Obsidian and only Obsidian to organize my work, I've decided to apply the methodologies that I'm applying or that I was benefiting from in other tools inside of the starter kit. So I'm using the Moscow approach. Also, I represent the urgency, the impact, the effort, and a priority score. So if we take a look at a goal, and maybe it's best to open the action space. That will be our entry point to the discussion about basis. You can see that if I take my goals, for instance, I have different goals. Many are not started yet, so I have a ton of work to do. I have recently revamped the starter kits. I'm still in the progress, so I've not completed that one yet. It's not up to date. That's the issue with reality. Sometimes things lag behind. That's all right. But you have different notions. So first, there is this for goals, time horizon states that you want to achieve this in the short term or long term. And so you can sort and organize this. You can also filter further if you want. You have the current status of all of those goals. The progress level is calculated based on the value that you give here. So if I say 100, then it's marked as nearly done because it's not yet completed. I think you have the priority score and priority override, the idea is that this value is determined based on the value of other properties. And I can explain later how it's done. Actually, I will organize a second session to dive deeper into the bases themselves, because this will take time. I have also the urgency, the impact, the effort. And the idea is that based on these, so is it necessary or not? Is it urgent or not? Will it have a big impact or not? Is it something easy to do or hard to do? Then you will get a priority score. And logically, based on those prioritization and decision-making frameworks, you know that if something is a must, that it's urgent, that it has a high impact, and whether the effort is large or not, it should have top priority. That's the way these things work and relate. And so we have this priority score that gets calculated based on the value of all of those properties. But then if you know, okay, that's the reality, or rather that's the theory, but in reality, I know that, this is the top priority right now, for whatever reason, objective or not. But the system supports that. All right, so it's a prioritization framework that you can leverage to make more objective decisions about your priorities, basically. So time horizons we have discussed. We have documentation again in the user guide about all of the possible values for the workflows, so for goals, for plans, for projects, and for tasks. Specifically the idea behind those is that for goals, first you start with an idea. Maybe you would like to go to the moon or whatever, but it's just an idea. It's aspiration. At some point you plan it, so because you want to achieve it within a certain time frame. Then at some point you start working towards achieving that goal, so you can mark it as active. Back burner is for goals that you are achieving or you are making progress towards those, but it's not a top priority and it's a continued effort that is standing on the side. So for instance, I have the goal to integrate all of my knowledge inside of Obsidian. At this point, it's not achieved yet. I still have, maybe 2,000 nodes inside of Evernote, and I haven't used it for a while. So maybe I'll never get to that, but it's on the back burner, something that I want to achieve, but that's not my main focus at all. So you can put a goal on hold, you can mark it as completed or abandoned. Now, if we look at the corresponding thing for projects, it's actually quite close. So you have idea, you have planned, you have active, back burner, on hold, completed and abandoned. Actually, it's exactly the same. And so I try to reuse or align those statuses across different node types when they relate to each other as logical as possible. So it's not perfect, but it's a start. Same thing. So these are the statuses, but inside of the action space, you can see that the values have a prefix. Again, leveraging ideas to order information more naturally. So what I try to do is, it's not perfect, but it's a start again. And actually, this one is, I think, broken. I think that is because of the order of some other columns. But see, priority 10 is the lowest value, and it appears first because it's the top priority. And then it goes down from top to very high to medium to low to very low. So when you sort, because we have those prefixes for the values, they get sorted more naturally. As I said, it's not perfect. Sometimes I've been, maybe a bit inconsistent in some things. But it's not that easy to change. Because that's a lot of work actually to maintain those statuses, and moreover to update all of the nodes to use the right values. And now that I've introduced this, it will be complicated for me to change it. The one thing, and then the thing I thought about is if you need additional states, so if you want to, for instance, have something in between top and very high, since I've left numbers in between, you can for instance, add 15, whatever, semi-top or whatever you want. So you have spaces thanks to those values to insert new values, additional ones, without breaking the system. Now, keep in mind that if you decide to change the values for statuses or other properties that are mentioned in Obsidian basis, you will have to adapt the queries and the bases themselves. So here, if you take a look, it's looking for nodes that have the type goal and that are not abandoned and that are not completed. And so if you change those values, don't forget to also change the basis to make those work again. And I don't recommend actually doing this through Obsidian unless you are not technical at all and maybe scared of technical details, but maybe you wouldn't be here with me still. But it's to edit those files with your System Explorer or a Notepad or Visual Studio Code or something like that. I recommend Visual Studio Code if you can use that. It's free. The thing is that a base is actually a .base file, and it's actually just a text file. And since it's a text file, it's easy to search and replace. So much easier to search and replace than starting to click here and then change that and then right-click there. And it's going much faster. Also, if you are changing tags or property values or property names, things like that, use something such as Visual Studio Code so that you can search and replace within all of the files at once, instead of having to do it manually one by one and thinking about all of the places that you need to modify. Because here, for instance, if I change the way the progress property works, then this would be broken because now it's created in such a way that it expects values to be between 0 and 100. And actually, I realized that this is why it's not marked or displayed as done. Rather, it should have one more entry there to mark it as done if it's 100. Anyways, detail for improvement. Okay. I think that we have covered a few things about basics of the action system. Now, let's see it in action. It all starts, as I said, with goals. But a goal is just a note, as we saw, containing information in which you can document, if you want, it's not needed, but in which you can document your vision, criteria for success, your strategy, your decisions, and whatnot. But yeah, you start with that. You give it a certain priority, certain time frame, you plan it. So you can do that really at the highest level and longest term. Longest term point in your life. So you can actually define goals for the next 25 years or something. Then you drill down and then you define a specific project. So if you want to write a book, maybe the first step would be a small project to write 10 articles, something like that. And you start with that. And so these two levels, just basic notes, really nothing fancy, just the properties that look more complex, but that's it. I mean, you just create a note, you apply the goal template, that's done. Same thing for projects, with the small difference that when you create a project note, again, you should use the template because the template will actually store projects inside of a folder. And the reason I did this, so here, if you create a note called like this, so you give this name, you apply the project template, then the note is going to be moved in a folder that contains the project name. And why did I do this? Because usually in certain projects, I have more than one file, like this one, for instance, and I don't want to clutter the structure. So I prefer to have one folder per project and have the project note inside. That's just a detail. And now we get to the meat of things. So the day-to-day stuff is where you will spend most of your time. So this happens maybe once a year, and you update it a few times a year. This happens maybe once a month or every few weeks. The tasks are things that you do on a daily basis. And so you need a support system to handle those. So as you can see, tasks are also nodes in the system. And so I had this idea of adding a certain feature to my little app that I've created, the week planner. I wanted to install Jellyfin on my NAS and some other things. So all of the tasks are represented by notes. We've discussed before why I think that's valuable, because you can document tons of things inside of those notes. You can create links between those nodes and other nodes in your system, between that task and other tasks. But that's not the full story. So there are two more things at least that I want to cover. First, look here, if I click on a task, there's an icon for tasks here, again, because I don't have the Metadata Menu plugin in my Vault. But I think this one should work. Maybe I've disabled it, actually. That's why I couldn't show you before. Nope. Okay. I guess I broke my plugin for now. Anyways, what I wanted to show is that if you open a task node, such as this one, you can see here that there is this weird little thing. That's actually a task node. So the Starter Kit v3 includes a plugin that is called TaskNotes. The TaskNotes plugin is a task management plugin, basically. And it fully supports the vision of having one file per task. Actually, it's the one plugin that pushed me to actually create and use this action system, because I saw the value directly in doing that. And so if I click on the task, then I get this edit task card view. So I have the title of the task. I have the tags that appear on the note behind the task. I can define contexts. So the contexts are first level. I could add the work context, for instance, here. It's useful because you can then filter your tasks based on context. So personal, professional, for instance. You can add task estimates. Interestingly, you can link each task or any task with one or multiple projects. That's quite cool. So for instance, here, I don't think I have a project for Omarchi, but maybe. Not bad example indeed. So maybe you can take a different one. Yeah, this is one of the ideas that I have for the future. So I want to embed the documentation of the Starter Kit directly within the Starter Kit. So this is a task. I added a project to this one. So I know when it was added, because by default it adds the node in which it was created. I linked it to my project node for the Starter Kit. This is nice because now there is a strong relationship and direct link between the project and this task, and between this task and the project. When you add to project, you can see that it only includes in the list project nodes. So it's a filtered down list, quite cool. And so you can easily type and find what you need. Also, when you set like this, when you add a project like this, I have mapped the properties. So you can see that it uses this related project property that I mentioned for the action system. The two are really well configured, connected. And so if I go to my daily note here, I will now show you how you can create a task. So the way you create a task is you just create, so you have to be on a task like this, and you just write something to do now. And then see here on the right, you have this little button, convert to TaskNotes. What this does is create a new note and mark it as a task. And so now I can click on it, and just like before, I have this. I can associate it with a project and do stuff. One thing that is not great, would like to have improvement in the plugin, but it's not the case now. Here, you cannot select the right values, so you don't get help. I did add the custom fields so that you could see their current values, but changing requires knowing the exact values. Not great. Hope that it will be possible to improve that later. You can also add the related goals. So here you can find a specific goal. There's no filtering for that part, but it might come later. So you have to search. And actually, I realized that maybe it doesn't even, it only lists the projects. So yeah, no, I'm not using it, but not great either. You can, from here, open the notes. You can archive it. You can also set a date, start it, make it recurring, set reminders. You can change the status. That's interesting to know. So I mentioned the different life cycles of the different parts of the action system. You can see that it's fully mapped inside of this plugin. So it's easy to, from a task, update its state to, okay, that's an in-progress task. And then you save it. You can also archive. All right. And see, when you change, you can also do it through that. Like that, it's in the backlog. Like this, it's for this year. Okay, this quarter, this month, this week, it's in progress. Okay. So yeah, that's one thing. Now, it's not complete yet. The story, that's too slow. What I want to show you is this. So in the sidebar, I have included the tasks view. The tasks view is part of the TaskNotes plugin. And you see you have the open tasks view. This is that one. There is also a Pomodoro, and that I have added there. So you can use the sidebar, go there, you click on the Pomodoro, you start it, and you can focus on something. Or you can look at your tasks there and you can filter. So I'm configuring Omarchi. I can quickly go back to what I want there and open the note. Basically this is how I manage my tasks now. So I have the links with my different goals and projects. I have this action space that we will come back to. And I have the these lists of tasks that I include in my daily notes. Also, there's one thing to mention here, is that when you convert a task, I don't know if you saw, but before we had the little check mark on the left, when it was converted, the check mark was removed, the task box was removed. The problem with that is that Obsidian Starter Kit has support for rolling daily tasks over. So I have to be careful not to break my vault when doing this, but I have a safety net. If I open today's notes, I have these things to do. If I open tomorrow's notes, there's nothing. So when I go from one day to the next, what I would do is do this, and I just say, by the way, I think I need this all over daily to-dos now. So this is going to move all of the not completed yet tasks from one day to the next. But it's only going to do that for those that have checkbox there. That's why I would like the plugin to improve to not remove that one. Yeah, but demo again. Over. Yeah, I guess it's because it's not a different day. I don't know exactly, but normally would have moved those over. Sorry for the demo again. But usually it works quite well. So from one day to the next, that's maybe the issue is just this. I stupid in that way. All over. Let me try again. I'm curious now. It failed for Springfield. So it looked in 17. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, it's because my tasks are. Oops, close the window. My tasks are not on the correct day, so it could not find any tasks. A stupid mistake. Yeah. All right. No, this is not the correct one. Sorry, I opened the wrong one. Yeah, I knew that I would go a bit over time with this one. Okay, so one more thing I want to show. So you saw the tasks lists. That's nice. What I prefer to use is the Kanban board. So there are two plugins for Kanban boards inside of the Obsidian Starter Kit. The Kanban plugin provides simple Kanban boards. So if we create one, we'll just try here. To close this down. New Kanban board. Doesn't want to for some reason. That's weird. Yeah, maybe I have disabled. No, it just took time, sorry. Okay, so you could create a Kanban board like this. So that's one way. Then you have in progress, and you have done maybe. So this is this plugin in Obsidian. It's the Kanban plugin. That one is nice. I still use it actually. My main Kanban board is actually still using this. I'm just shifting to a different approach over time. But inside of here, with this plugin, what you can do is, as we saw, add columns using this. You can archive a column also. So you can archive completed tasks. So if you say that this is done, then you can archive it, then it's done. You can just have tasks like this, and then you can move those around. It's really slow for some reason. Doesn't want to transition those. Yeah, I guess I have a bug in my drag and drop, but normally you would just drag and drop to the other one. I think that my window is broken. Anyway, you can move to list and you can change the state basically like that. Normally you can also drag and drop. That would do the same. You can actually include tasks. Since each task is just a note, then something to do is something that you can insert there. And so you can combine actually those two plugins. So the TaskNotes plugin, which does this with file-based tasks, and the Kanban-based plugin to just visualize and move things around. Now, that being said, there's an alternative that I find but better actually. It's the Kanban view of the TaskNotes plugin. So the TaskNotes plugin comes with this view, the list view, task view, but also with a Kanban board. And so with the Kanban board, you get to see your tasks, you can filter, you can search, you can sort. It's not perfect, but it's quite neat. And so I'm moving to this more and more now. And so basically it's just a Kanban board. What's interesting is that the columns that you see there, they map the statuses of the tasks. That means that if I open this one now here, not that one, I mean this one rather. Let's do that, open nodes. Okay, so this is the week planner, include a link to GH repo task, this one. I can click here to change the state. If I do, see, it automatically moved. Why? Because when I clicked on that, it changed the status. And so the value here of the status was changed. And I can do it normally with the Metadata Menu plugin when it's not broken on my computer. But you can click there too. So the way this has been configured now, we have the TaskNotes plugin, as I said. The TaskNotes plugin, I have set or configured that it should store the tasks inside of the actions folder, 24 tasks, then per year, then per month. So it has support for these placeholders, and that's done by the TaskNotes plugin. It replaces those values dynamically. It moves the archived tasks to that folder. So I showed you this, I've shown you this at the beginning. So 60 archives, and then tasks and year months. It recognizes tasks by the task tag. So you need to have that tag on TaskNotes to be able to have TaskNotes. It ignores the templates and stuff that should be ignored, generally speaking. Configuration-wise, this is just basis. Then much more interesting, we have this mapping between the possible values of the status fields for tasks with the plugin. So each of those values here, if you open the task template, you will find those back. 10 backlog, 20 this year. And the order is also logical. So we go from backlog, things you have not planned, to things you have planned for this year, things that are closer that you have planned for this quarter, things for this month, things for this week, things that you are busy with on hold because you cannot move forward, and things that are completed. Okay, and then same thing with the priorities. So the priority values have also been mapped into the plugins configuration. And so the colors will match the different priority levels. And last but not least, the properties that the TaskNotes plugin uses, I have mapped those to the different properties that we have in the starter kit. And I've added some actually to represent new things that were not there yet, such as recurrence and others. As I said, I also mapped custom user fields. So these are part of the TaskNotes and other types. But at this point, not great. It's not providing support for customizing the value sets. So maybe later this will be better. What else can I show you here? So these are the tags that get added to all tasks automatically. So it's part of the actions zone, and it's a task. So it's using the type tag. Let's see again, if you decide to change the actions way of handling things and the type tags, things like that, you will have to think about adding or modifying those rather. Inside of appearance and UI, you can customize the fields that you see. I just displayed those that I care about. I don't use recurring tasks in that way, so did not put it there. I did not display the custom properties for now because no support for specific values, so not so interesting to me. Set the default first day on Monday because that's what we use here in Europe and Belgium. This is how we map the list of includes to the folders, but I realized that this might be the reason why I did not get a suggestion for the goal earlier. I would have to look into that. Okay, and many details about the configuration. Maybe we can do a session about TaskNotes if you want to dive into that, but I'm already half an hour past the time that we set initially. Okay, what else can we dive into? So we saw the Kanban. One thing that is interesting to know is that the TaskNotes plugin has an integration with Basis. So at least the current version, it works that way. You can have a custom view. You add a view to the base, and that's what I did in the action space. And the view type can be tasks Kanban, tasks list, and tasks calendar. And so I added these three views. Just let me check the actual values. So I have those three: task list, Kanban, and calendar. And I added one for Kanban, one for list, and one with calendar. Calendar is cool because you get to see if you plan stuff, then you can actually plan it like this visually to associate it with a certain time frame. And then you see that it's been scheduled to November 19th. So it's a nice way to plan things ahead and block time too, because you can also create things like that and, new tasks that you should achieve. Quite powerful. So we have this calendar. I generally use the Kanban view like this. It's quite interesting. I have it in my base with the rest. That's just so many details, actually. I didn't realize I would need so much time. So the actions base. I propose to just push back the explanations about Basis and all of the intricate details of Basis, because otherwise it will not be done before long. Okay, so the Basis will be for the next, Basis and plugins. Actually, I will stop here. It's just more reasonable, let's say. Okay, I will keep this part for next time. Because it's about time to eat over here. And I'm feeling hungry. Okay, so yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot of details about how the starter kit works and templates and integrations and configurations. It was a ton of information. I hope that you will find it interesting and useful. Yeah, I'm sorry for not completely covering everything, but yeah, as you saw, it's quite involved. There's a lot of moving pieces, and so I will keep the rest for next time. All right, so these we didn't cover either. So next time, what I propose is we are going to dive into the health system basis. We can dive deeper into the TaskNotes plugin, and also we are going to dive into the plugins actually, because we have covered a few. I've shown the TaskNotes a bit. I've shown the Templator plugin configuration a bit, but maybe it might be interesting to just go through all of the plugins. Hope that you found this presentation useful, and I will leave you with that. Have fun with the starter kit and Obsidian. See you next time.